Hey guys, welcome back to this video. Today we are going to be looking at a really fun lighting technique using GOBOs. So a GOBO is short for go-between, and it's something that you put in between your light source and your subject to cast an intentional shadow. Now you might be thinking, well, why would I intentionally create shadows on my subject? Normally we're trying to diffuse light to avoid shadows where we don't want them, but GOBOs can be a really effective way of creating the feel of a certain mood. So in this video, I'm going to be showing you how I create a custom GOBO to create a really outside summer day effect. But you can of course use GOBOs to create many different effects. And if you want to know more about the different styles available or what you might want to use them for, then do check the link in description to the full blog post where I'm going through 5 main types of GOBOs. So without further ado, let's jump into today's video. Okay, so for this summer shot, I've gone ahead and set up my scene. I'm gonna get into the styling and the shooting in a minute, but first of all, I just wanna show you the GOBO that I've made. So this is simply a piece of white foam core. I picked this up at a craft store. It's super lightweight, super cheap. And then what I did was I went ahead and drew on a few kind of random spirals, patterns, holes, and then used a standing knife on a hard surface to cut them out, basically to create little interruptions in this board. So obviously when you're doing this, make sure you're using a sharp knife, because that's gonna help, you know, things cut properly and not slip. But do be careful when you're working with a sharp knife, you know, common sense, it's all good. So what I'm gonna do is for this shot, I am gonna be using hard undiffused light because I wanna create that effect of being outside on a summer's day. But I want to use this to block some of that light to create that sort of dappled effect that you get when sunlight is shining in between tree branches. So when you're working with GOBOs, what is important to remember is that the distance of your GOBO from your light source relative to your subject is going to have an effect on how hard the shadows that your GOBO casts are. So for example, if I have my light source here and I put my GOBO here and my subject is down here, then those shadows are going to look quite soft because the light has quite a long way to travel from the GOBO to the subject. Whereas if I keep my light source and my subject in the same place and move the GOBO closer to the subject, that's going to create a harder outlined shadow. So I'm going to be placing this GOBO nearer to the light source so that the light that falls through casts hard shadows on these subjects, but the shadows created by the GOBO itself are going to be soft. So it's going to be easiest to just show you this rather than talking about it, but those are the principles we're going to be looking at, so let's dive in. Okay, so let me walk you through the setup we have on the scene. So I've got my camera on my overhead arm. I'm using my 55mm lens for this flat lay. I've got my LED continuous light set up here with the reflector head just to kind of keep that light a little bit more focused onto the scene so it's not spilling all over the room. I'm going to use continuous light just so I can really see the effect in real time, and you can also see on my screen a little bit easier. So in terms of setup, I've gone for this cloth background because I want to create sort of a summer outdoor picnic-y kind of look, and I can see that it's just peeking some of my table underneath at the top, so let's adjust that. There we go. So that's just going to help give me that kind of outdoorsy vibe, which is what I'm going for. So for my light, I've got it quite high above my scene and I've got it pointing down at quite an angle because I really want to mimic how the sun in the sky behaves on a summer's day. So it's quite high, it's coming down, meaning these shadows to the side of the bowl are not too long, they're quite short. You can see if I move it further away that those shadows get longer, and the closer I move it, the shadows get shorter. So I think something like that looks good. Now, obviously right now we can see that this image is a little bit overexposed, but let's see what happens when we bring our GOBO in. So I've got my foam cord set up on a light stand with a clamp just so I can quite easily move it, and I've angled it to be at about the same angle as the light. So if we bring this in, you can see the effect that this has on our image. And what we can do is just play around with positioning until we get a pattern that we like. Now I do quite like that main dish having light directly on it because that is where our main salad is going to be. So I'm going to position one of the larger holes, yeah, maybe something like that, And just don't be afraid to spend a bit of time playing until you have something that you like. This is obviously not an exact science. You could, of course, go ahead and cut some new holes in your gobo. I'm just going to keep playing around for a little while. Okay, so I'm going to go with that for now. What I really like is I've got some light falling on that main subject, but I've got this really nice shadow going on in the rest. So let's go ahead and play up and style, and then we might move it around again later. Okay, so we're going to be plating a melon salad today. So I've got 3 different kinds of melon that I'm going to gradiate, and then I've got a few other ingredients and a dressing. So I want to start with the watermelon and then move on to the orange melon and then the honey G. It's looking nice. I do love melon though. Okay, let's do some orange. Just to give a bit of context to the scene. We've got some olives, we've got some tomatoes. Okay, so next up, I'm just gonna add on some of my tomatoes. I want everything to look pretty casual. Just a nice little picnic salad. It's nothing too styled. Oh my gosh, this happens every single time. I think I bring ingredients and then I don't. So I'm just going to break off some chunks and get that dotted around. Okay, and then we've got a dressing and we have some basil and a few extra little bits. So let's just go ahead and start putting some of this dressing on. I want to focus it on areas where you're going to see that texture. So just to make sure that I get lots of those nice chili flakes on the cheese. This is also just going to help pick up some specular highlight from that hard light as well. Fresh basil leaves. So I'm just going to kind of let them fall naturally where they want to fall. And I think I'm also going to dot a couple of these around the scene just to help it look a little bit more natural as well, like it's outside. And then maybe a couple on this little wooden board. I feel like my olives just look a little bit dry, so I've just literally got some water in this little mister spray. They were oily earlier. And then let's just go for some extra black pepper for a bit of texture on the top. Okay, so now we have our scene set up. I can sort of see that now the salad itself looks a little bit dark, so I am just going to play around with the position of that gobo again, and I think I can see that really nice bit of light there, but then I don't want it to miss the top, so you might need to flip it again. I've already played around with flipping it once, but I think actually there's a little bit more texture on this side. There we go, that's certainly getting there. I think there's that streak there that I want across the main salad. And then just to make sure that this area down here is gonna get some shadow as well. Okay, so now I've gone ahead and styled everything. I'm just gonna double check my exposure. So looking at it over here, I have changed my shutter speed to 1/80th of a second, just to bring down the exposure a little bit because this area in the sun was looking a little bit too bright. So let's go ahead and take a shot. Okay, so we have our shot here. So let's have a look at the histogram just to check where we're at. So I can see that we've got quite a lot going on in the darks and not very much in the highlights. So we probably could boost the exposure up a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that and just reduce our shutter speed back to 1/50th and see how that looks. Okay, so we've taken another shot at 1/50th and now the overall sort of spread is a little bit more even, but I do feel like this area down here is just a little bit too bright. So I'm gonna go ahead and change it to 1/60th. Okay, that one is much better. So you can see it's just that little bit brighter than our first one, but a little bit better exposed than our second one. So that is how I would DIY a really simple gobo out of a piece of foam core to create this kind of summer dappled light effect. Obviously you can go crazy, you can cut whatever shapes you want into your foam core, or you could even use a completely dedicated gobo. It is completely up to you. It's a really fun way to mix up your artificial lighting and create some atmospheres that aren't necessarily possible with just a standard softbox or an undiffused light. So I hope you enjoyed this video and found it fun. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. If I'm waffling, just cut me out.